Good afternoon and welcome along to NUFC Matters with Steve Wraith and Lee Clark, as we always have on Saturday. Lee, how are you?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Very good, mate. Very good. It's another week and we're still alive and just still not back to normal, mate, but I'm sure we'll be at some point, mate.
We're getting closer to the new normal, I think.
I think so, mate. I think so. We've got football back, though, which is great, and we've got football back for Newcastle United. So let's start with the Sheffield United game, mate. What did you make of that?
I thought it was a quite impressive performance in the end. I thought, and if you remember rightly, my concern was that Sheffield United had already played in the certain conditions that they've got now, with eerie stadiums, no atmosphere, all those type of things, and they would have a little bit of a foothold on Newcastle, and that's the way the game started. For the first 15 minutes, Sheffield United looked strong. Newcastle were just finding their feet, but I always expected that, and it was a crucial part of the game for me that Newcastle just stayed strong in the game and kept close to Sheffield United, and then withstood that pressure or the difference, because the Newcastle lads were just getting used to the surroundings. And then I thought they just got stronger and stronger, and they were playing well even when it was 11v11, and then when it went 11v10, they turned the screw, and it ended up being an impressive result in performance. Because when I've watched all the games, I mean, for a football supporter and someone who loves football, it's unbelievable. Every night you've got a live match on just about. So I've been taking notice of the whole division really and watching, and most of the teams did struggle on their first outing, you know, in terms of trying to get used to the scenarios. It must have been so strange for the players who are used to having electric atmospheres in their stadiums that they're playing. And, you know, if they're away from home, you know, they're having the taunts of the home fans. And if they're at home, that fans are driving them on. So, you know, it has been a bit weird. But I think as they've got into their second and third games, you know, you can see them getting back to a bit of normality. And so, yeah, I was really impressed with the victory and with the performance, resounding in the end. But then, obviously, you had Wednesday evening where it turned a little bit flat, really, in terms of the performance against Villa. And, you know, probably got what they deserved in that game, which was only a point. Now, 4 points from 6 isn't a bad return. But, you know, that for me just tells you why Newcastle are where they are. When you're a mid-table to a team trying to push into the top 10, you're in those positions because you're not consistent. And those two games epitomise why Newcastle find it difficult to, at the moment, to break into the top teams. I mean, you look at the top teams, the teams who win things are the strongest teams, are the teams who are just consistent. They win a game, they're thinking about the next one straight away. You know, where Liverpool's last result, the victory against Crystal Palace, what was interesting for me, Pep, obviously Jurgen Klopp saying that it was the best pressing game he'd ever witnessed from his Liverpool squad. And here was a team that was so far clear in the Premier League title, and obviously they've since become winners and champions. But to say that about a team who are so far ahead means to me that they've obviously got instilled a winning mentality in them, because every game they want to raise the standard. Every game. They forgot about the last win, which was the last game. They got on to the next one. They want to set new standards. And that's the difference between the top players and top teams and teams who are hang around mid-table, because they don't get that consistency in their performances. And I think that, for me, showed this week in the two performances, you know, was a little bit chalk and cheese. The Villa showing was really flat in comparison to Sheffield United. So, you know, that's what Newcastle have to get. They have to get into a consistent run of victories if they want to be, you know, a team that wants to get into the top 10 and then break into European positions.
I think with the first game, it was just great to see Newcastle score 3 goals. I mean, Steve Bruce had a laugh about it afterwards, saying, typical, you know, the only time I haven't got any fans in the stadium, we're going to smash 3 past Sheffield United, who are in Europe. But I mean, it was just good to see the goal scorers, you know, get in the net. Joe Linton was one of them. You know, Malcolm McDonald's had his say this week on the show. Said Joe Linton really, in his mind, shouldn't be starting. You know, what's your view on that? And why do you think he's constantly in the team?
Yeah, listen, you've got one of the managers I work with says you play yourself in the team and you play yourself out. And for me, Joe Linton's been playing himself out the team. But I think because of lack of numbers and lack of fitness to big Andy Carroll, he survived and stayed in the team. And,
yeah,
you know, that's great faith from Steve to his striker. But obviously, you just mentioned there, you know, the Sheffield United, one of the few times they've scored more than one goal when they've got a positive result. And that takes you back to what your attacking players are doing. Are they scoring enough goals? And obviously, Joe Linton has certainly not scored enough goals. He scored a proper number 9's goal against Sheffield United. You know, I love seeing strikers, and the top strikers I've played with, they enjoy those little 6-yard, 5-yard tap-ins because they're getting in the right positions. And that's why they moan when they get in the box and people don't put crosses in, because they know that's their bread and butter, and they'll score 25 out of 30, 35 goals. The 25 of them will be inside the 6-yard box. Yeah. So that was a proper number 9's goal. But in terms, and then his performance against Villa wasn't up to standard. And for me, you know, Andy comes on, he influences the game, he causes more of a problem. What Andy Carroll does is, because defenders don't come up against his type very often, they come up against a different type of strikers who want to come off into little pockets or, you know, go over the top. They don't come up against the strikers who want to have that physical confrontation. And what you've got to remember with Andy as well, he also has the technical ability in terms of, he's not just a big fella who you lump the ball up to, you play up to him with quality. He can hold the ball up, he can knock it into runners, he can, you know, he passes with his head as well. When he gets up, he doesn't just flick headers on, or he actually puts it in the direction of runners. And for me, tomorrow against Man City is a no-brainer to start Andy, because they're like, you know, the weak part of Manchester City's team at this moment in time. I watched them midweek for Chelsea, and their weak point is the defensive area of the team. You know, they're superb going forward, absolutely phenomenal. And I thought they were outstanding against Chelsea, even though they lost the game. And obviously that was the result that gave Liverpool the title. But I still thought that attacking play was outstanding. But defensively, you know, it's Achilles' heel. And if they'll not, none of those defenders, whichever ones he goes with, they'll not enjoy playing up against Andy Carroll. So, I think, you know, I think he's got to start tomorrow if he's capable. Even if you only get 60, 70 minutes out of him, you know, get a lead in the game, and it gives you something to hold on to. You can then set your stall out a little bit differently. Because tomorrow you've got to understand. I mean, I repeat myself. I watched them against Chelsea, and they were superb. I mean, there was one move where Raheem Sterling hit the post. They went from the goalkeeper catching the ball to about 5 one-touch passes within about 10, 15 seconds, and Sterling hits the inside the post. It would have been one of the best team goals you've ever seen. It was phenomenal how they moved the ball. So, you know, you're going to come up against that tomorrow, that are a wounded animal. And like we just talked about before, winners, winning characters, winning players, winning teams who are used to winning, they hurt, and it hurts them badly when they lose things, when they lose the odd game, and certainly when they lose that title, which they've lost to Liverpool. So they'll be a very, very wounded animal, and they'll be looking to rectify that. So they're just, you know, it's going to be tough. We all know that. But I think, in terms of the question was about Joe Linton, I think it's time for Andy to start the game. And Joe Linton, as we said all during the lockdown, hopefully he comes back and he delivers. Well, he did in terms of the goal, but in terms of his performance the other night, I didn't think it was up to the standard that's required.
Yeah, I would agree, mate, 100%. And we're not getting anybody disagreeing either. Mark Young asked the most important question on the Lee Clark show on a Saturday.
Orange juice, but in a Moretti glass.
The hell is on there? He's getting ready for the 4th of July, aren't you?
Oh, that's going to be carnage, isn't it? I think I'll not be trying to get in the pub that day, I tell you.
No,
keep it away. Definitely
not, mate. John Justice Allen says, afternoon, guys. Do you think the ASM could play number 10 behind Carroll? He beats a man for fun and he has a good shot on the edge of the box. What do you think about that, Lee?
Yes, I mean, obviously, in the system that they're playing at the moment, with the 4-2-3-1, or even when they made the change the other day and Steve put both Andy and Dwight Gale on, and they went to a bit more orthodox 4-4-2. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play with two strikers and you play with St. Maximin at 10, it means you have to just define and refine the midfield area. So whether you go with a 4-3-1-2 and you give St. Maximin the freedom, or you play with a diamond in midfield. And that's the easiest way to probably get a number 10 into your team, because obviously if you play with a 4-3-1-2, the three midfield players have a lot of area to cover getting across the whole width of the pitch. So, you know, without a doubt, he excites you, he gets you on the edge of your seat. We've talked about him, saying about, you know, when there's been the question asked, any of the current players could get in the entertainers, and he's the one that gets the mention. And what I love about him, he's so positive. You know, he's so direct, he's so positive. He's got it in his mind straight away that he's wanting to attack the players. He knows what he's doing. Whether he's going to go fake to go inside to go outside, or vice versa, outside to come inside. He can finish when he gets chances. So, no, I would love. What you've got to think about is, as well, with him not having a lot of time on the training ground because the games are coming thick and fast. If Steve was to change the system, needs to get a lot of work done on that system. And I think he's settled on the 4-2-3-1 at the moment, with St. Maxim coming off the line. But it's also always an option to do it. Maybe make a change in the game if the game's not going your way, and tactically you need to change something. You've always got that in your mind.
We mentioned it last week, mind. St. Maximin was training during the lockdown with his dog in the garden. It's obviously done him a world of good. Yeah,
he's looked very impressive. I've got to say, he's been the main player in the two games, and hopefully it can continue. He can be a threat tomorrow against, as we say, the Achilles heel of Man City, the defending part of the game. If he gets in field and he starts attacking those centre backs. I don't know if you've seen Pulisic's goal for Chelsea against them, and he went past a couple of uneasy challenges that you wouldn't be liking your defender to make if you were a manager. So, you know, if St. Maxim can get those guys on the back foot and start attacking them 1v1, he could create problems.
100%, mate. Steve Burnup, good afternoon. He says, Clark, you remember when I lived in Mullen Gardens, I used to knock on your door all the time for autographs?
I did, yeah. I remember that. There was a few. I mean, I still have that house. My sister lives in that house now. So, so don't knock on the door anymore, though, because my brother-in-law will give you a clip.
John Pooley says, Lee, are you surprised that goalkeeper Jack Butland, who you managed at Birmingham, is still playing in the Championship?
Yeah, but I think what's been the stumbling block with Jack moving back to the Premier League has been the fee that Stoke have placed on their head, because Jack has a long-term contract at Stoke. Stoke are owned by very, very wealthy owners, the great people, the family-owned club, and they don't need the cash, even though they've got relegated to the Championship. They don't need to cash in on what they consider to be their best players. So unfortunately, the figure they have put on Jack's head, the clubs that have been interested, I think there's been West Ham have shown a strong interest in a couple of windows, are not prepared to meet the asking price. And obviously Jack made the commitment to Stoke about signing a long-term contract. So he has to be prepared to continue to play. And obviously they've had a real tough season this year in the Championship. They're fighting. I think they've got a huge game against Middlesbrough this afternoon. For those two clubs are massive in terms of the result. And so his ability wise, there's no doubt. It was weird when I had him at Birmingham. He actually was playing in the Olympics for the GB team when I took over, and he'd been on loan at Cheltenham, and I'd got to see Jack quite a bit at Cheltenham, because when I was Huddersfield manager at the time, and I had a striker on loan from Huddersfield at Cheltenham. So I used to keep an eye on this lad who was on loan, and obviously Jack was in goal for Cheltenham. So I seen this young, impressive keeper. And then when I took over, he hadn't played a game for the club. So I actually gave him his debut in the Championship. But he'd actually got an full England cap, can you believe it, before playing in the English Championship. And obviously played in the Olympics also for the GB team. So it's been a weird way his career has panned out. we obviously had to sell him when I was manager, when we had the financial problems. So Stoke got him for a knockdown, I think £4 million at the time. We should have been getting 10 million plus, but they knew we were desperate for the money. We had to sell him and Nathan Redmond. They were the crown jewels at the time. We were the quite opposite of what Stoke are now. We just had to accept any kind of bid for our best players, and unfortunately, our best two players were of a young age and the future of the English game. And so, yeah, but certainly he's not playing in the Premier League because of his ability. It's because the clubs who are interested aren't prepared to match the quite high figure that Stoke are asking.
Yeah, Sir Mark Fleming, he says it's no good starting games with Joe Linton simply because the guy's getting worse, and against Villa he was lazy and seemed uninterested. Tom Dixon says Lee, Andy Carroll and Dwight would be the best option. Chicken Oriental just says Joe Linton, which I've heard a few times. Never forget when you had that Newcastle shirt on under your Sunderland shirt. Good banter for Sunderland. Got no idea what that's.
Listen, going back to the couple of questions that were in there, and this Joe Linton one, where the fans are questioning his desire against Aston Villa, and that's what I'm saying about what makes not just a top team, what makes a top player. You know, Joe Linton maybe thought the pressure had gone from him. He could like a huge sigh of relief because he scored a goal against Sheffield United. But what a top striker does, he scores against Sheffield United. Then he goes, right, I'm on a run. I'm going to be even better against Villa on the Wednesday. I'm going to score 2 or 3 or 4 on Wednesday. So then I'm not even thinking about the chances. When the chances come to us, I'm just smashing them in the net. There's no thought process. There's no worry. But what he seemed to, the body language and what seemed to be coming from him was that, oh, I've scored the goal against Sheffield United. I can relax for a few weeks before like I start getting a bit of stick again or my position's questioned. But it doesn't work like that. You've got to be. That's the difference between run of the mill and top players. They've forgot about what they've done the last game. They want to be even better. They're setting new standards in the next game. That's what they want to keep pushing themselves to be even better. And of course, I would, you know, in terms of Carroll and Gale, you know, they come on, they combine great for the goal. They looked, you know, it's a little and large one, isn't it? So why not give them an opportunity? They'll be full of confidence. I know one thing is, you know, what Dwight Gale has. He has a great attitude. He's got a great work ethic. You know, it hasn't always been easy for him. Certainly, they've stepped up in the Premier League. But when he does get chances, you know, you feel more confident that he will score than Joe Linton. And if he's got Andy doing what you call all the, you know, dirty side of the game and the, you know, the competitive side, and Gale can play off him, you could have a good combination. But it's whether Steve goes with 2 strikers, because if you go with 2 strikers tomorrow, it might leave you a little bit short in the middle of the pitch. And even when you match them up in the middle of the pitch, they sometimes overrun you. So it's a dilemma that he has to come up with the right system and personnel. But I'd certainly, you know, whether he goes with 2 strikers or 1, Andy has to be starting the game for me.
We've seen it in recent times, you know, certainly under Pardew. I remember certain players, you know, not wanting to play in the FA Cup, Lee. I mean, when you were playing, was it a big thing, the FA Cup? You know, was it something that you wanted to play in, or was it just was it a pain in the backside? 'Cause I just can't understand why players seem to have this downer on FA Cup games.
The complete opposite, Steve. Nothing more prouder than you know, to be involved in playing in the FA Cup. And unfortunately, I never ever was lucky enough to get to a final. I got to a semi-final with Fulham, and we got beat by our local rivals Chelsea at Villa Park. But you know, it's I think it's the mentality of the coaches and the managers where they keep saying, oh, the league games are more important. The league games are more important. And I was at the 2 cup finals in the 90s when Newcastle went. You know, I've had mates in the game. I went to watch Aston Villa play Chelsea one year when Steve Watson, Steve Stone and Alan Thompson were involved at Villa. And unfortunately, 2 of them got left out the full squad, and Stoney only made the bench. So they were distraught. You know, this is what you dream of when you're a kid, playing with your mates on the grass. You know, you commentate and you're talking about the FA Cup final. When I started first watching football, if you remember, the coverage of the FA Cup final used to start at 9 o'clock in the morning from both teams' hotel, and the bus, the cameras were live on the team buses and all that. It was so you were watching it from 9 o'clock through till 6 for the, you know, when the team who won it were getting presented with a true FA Cup. So no, you wanted to be there. You know, you would love to have had you know, an opportunity to have been in an FA Cup final. And to lift it as well. So, and to be fair to Steve, you know, he's come in and he said that he was going to give it a right good go, and go for it. And typical Newcastle look, you could say we've ended up getting the second best team in the country at the moment, but still one of the best in Europe as well. So, but we've got results against them before. You know, the famous 2-1 win under Rafa, and then Steve got a good 2-2 draw at the end of the season. So they're going to have to be at their best. Every single player is going to have one of their best games of the season. They're going to have an off day. But that's what happens when you come up against the best teams. That's how you win it. So, but I just think it's been ingrained in some of the younger players when the managers and coaches have talked about or put more emphasis and about, you know, the league game. I'll rest players in the FA Cup because I want my strongest team for the next league game. And you know, the FA Cup is known worldwide. I mean, you could talk about some of the like major cup competitions in Spain and Germany and Italy, and I don't think many people would know what the name of them were, you know, if they've got a special name. But the FA Cup, you'd mention that to any football fan worldwide and they know what it is. So I can only speak from an ex-manager, coach and player's point of view. I'd have loved to have been involved in an FA Cup final. That's for sure.
And if you're going to win it, you've got to beat the best. So, you know, fingers crossed for tomorrow. Unknown says that Bruce again, to me, it's clear that he's been told to play him. Yeah, we've had that debate on the show in the last week as well. You know, is it £1 million, Lee? Is there an argument to suggest that, you know, people above Steve Bruce say, look, you've got to play the lad? Or is it in his contract?
No, I don't think you'd never ever do that. Right. I think you know that you would start worrying if you were an owner or a manager or a CEO if an agent or a player wanted that put in the contract when he's fit, he plays. If anyone ever asked for that, I mean, I've never been asked that as a manager before to do that. I have, when I first went in at Birmingham, I have had an owner who tried to pick the team. Carson Young used to fax the team through on a Friday from his base in Hong Kong to meet the team he wanted, but that quickly got put in the shredder within 2 seconds of receiving it. I didn't even look at it half the time. So, you know, I kind of deny that, you know, owners will try and have an influence on the team. I think Steve's too long in the too experienced to let people above him, you know, who've never been in that position of managing, pick the team. I think the only thing that might, if Joe Linton was to start tomorrow and Gale is on the bench with Andy, the reasonings for me would be he's obviously wanting to just start with one striker. He doesn't feel Andy's up to getting more than 45 minutes out of the game, because if you're going to start with someone, you want them to last at least an hour, 70 minutes. You don't want to be having to sub them at half time. And also, if you're playing with one up top, a bit difficult if it's Dwight Gale because of his lack of physicality, physical presence. So for me, if Joe Linton starts, it has to be for those reasons. If, you know, I cannot see Steve starting with him if he thinks Andy's capable of 60, 70 minutes at least in the game. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting team sheet before the game tomorrow, that's for sure.
100%.
I think you've also mentioned as well, before we came on there, you mentioned about a few injuries, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking good in the midfield. I mean, obviously, it looks like Hayden and Richie will both miss out. Bentaleb is suspended because of bookings he's picked up earlier on in the competition. And now there's a question mark over Shelby, according to the Evening Chronicle tonight. So, you know, now we're hoping that the Longstaffs are both going to be available. You know, but you've got a lot of strength and depth in the midfield, but with those players out, you're losing a lot of your first choice. So that's going to be a problem area.
Absolutely. You know, Newcastle cannot afford to lose, you know, a number of players from the same area of the pitch for different reasons, like you said. And you just rattled off 3 or 4 there, you know. I mean, and influential ones as well in terms of Richie, because what you're going to have to need tomorrow is players who are going to be prepared to have to do a lot of work without the ball for long periods of the game. And what Matt Ritchie's got in abundance is an unbelievable attitude, as well as being a top footballer. His attitude is fantastic. Wherever he plays, he gives absolute maximum every single game. You know, has an unbelievable desire to win. Hayden has been good this certainly since coming back. Looked quite impressive actually. Looks great with his new hairstyle as well. Love all that. But he's been impressive since he's come back. So I've liked his energy in the middle. So if those two are missing on top, haven't seen a lot of Bentaleb, to be honest. But he's obviously been someone who Steve's called upon from the bench. And then obviously you've said that there's a doubt over Shelby. So you're talking about 4 central midfield players there.
Yeah.
So it'll have to be imperative that the 2 Longstaffs, if they were to not be making it as well, you don't know where he would go in terms of central midfield players, because he'd end up having to put at least 1, possibly 2 square pegs in round holes to just fill up the midfield area. Because unless he has a youngster there that he shows a bit of faith in, but it's some ask to put a youngster in the middle of the pitch, a vital area of the park in a game against Manchester City, because that's where they hurt you, and they've got some absolute unbelievable talent in the middle of the pitch. So it's hopefully, fingers crossed, some of those players do make it, and there is a bit of experience in the middle of the pitch.
Big Sell, his question's on the screen there. Hi, mate. He says, boys, I don't understand the latest new contract, especially Andy Carroll's extension. He's got 5 assists. It isn't his job. Isn't his job to score goals and play games consistently? We need to aim for better quality. Now, I think I put this down to earlier in the week that, unfortunately, we'll have players who are coming out of contract, and the agents are going to be pushing for the best deals for their clients, the best deals for the club. And if we needed Andy Carroll to play out the rest of the season, then his agent's going to want at least some kind of assurance for another bit of employment for the next 12 months. So I would imagine that's the reason why he's been offered an extension. Manquillo, I haven't seen anybody annoyed at that. He's got a 4-year deal. I think he's earned it. I think the performances have been solid. Obviously, as well as a keeper coming back, who you might know from your time in Scotland. He was at the academy when he was 16. There's we're going to be losing a couple of goalkeepers. Freddie Woodman's going out. Obviously, we would imagine he's not going to be at the club longer. Bobby Elliott's contract is expiring this month, so business has to continue, even though the takeover hasn't gone through, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And the Andy Carroll one, the only doubt in my eyes with Andy is his injury record.
Yeah.
Because put it this way: if the takeover happens and we get a better quality of player coming through the door, but you've got a fit Andy Carroll, you'd still want him part of that group, whether his time was as a sub. If you have a plan B with 20 minutes to go. You always need a different plan, Steve. You always need something, because a game mightn't be going in your favour for whatever reason. And you always need to do something maybe a little bit different, or not every game, but you always have to have something up your sleeve. And like we've just said, Andy is so totally different to the modern day number 9s or strikers. Now, the question about isn't his job to score goals? Yes, that comes in. But with Andy, it's a little bit different. Andy does so much more for the team. There's a target for the rest of the players to hit. Like I say, you don't just have to lump the ball to him. If you get it up there with quality, he's got a good touch. His left foot's very strong. He directs things in terms of with his passes, with his heading. He creates other chances. He intimidates the opponent. Yeah, we're not saying he can go the whole season and not score. Of course, he has a responsibility to score. But I think that's why you look at what people can do in and around him. I worked with him when he was young, when I took the reserves, and obviously he was quite raw then, but you could see that the people could play off him. He intimidated. He was playing against some experienced defenders at times when he was in the reserves with me, and he would intimidate them. their stature in the game, what they'd done, if they were internationals or whatever, it didn't bother Andy. He was just going into a game. He's going to be competitive. He was going to be aggressive, and he intimidated people. So the only ever doubt that I've always said about him is just been his injury record over the last couple of years. Now, what he needs to do, if he get a run of games, and he mightn't, if he gets these run of games under his belt, he mightn't start picking up these little niggly injuries here and there. He might be okay, So for me, that one, and like you say, the agents are in a strong position at this moment because they can dictate a little bit. Because if clubs are that desperate for these lads to sign that extra month's extension to get them through to the end of the season, they can make a few demands that possibly the club mightn't. But if they're desperate to do it and they think they're in a bit of trouble, look at what Bournemouth have had the opposite. They've lost one of their main players, Ryan Fraser. He didn't want to do it in case he gets injured and he's got a big move on the go. So, it is a tough position for the clubs to be in.
The goalkeeper I mentioned, obviously, earlier on is Mark Gillespie. He's going to come in. He's a free agent. He's coming from Motherwell. He was at the club when he was 16. Obviously, went to Carlisle, made his senior debut for them in 2010. Anthony Manuel on Twitter has asked, he says, great show, lads. Cheers, Anthony. He says, one question, he says, local lad Nathan Harker was from the academy. He's been released. He was a goalkeeper as well. Rafa gave him a couple of games in the first team. Now they've got him brought in a different, he didn't understand the logic to that. So, I mean, do you know anything about Harker and Gillespie? Like?
I know them both very well. Nathan Harker I had on loan at Blythe when I had my little spell there.
Mm-hmm.
And he found the type of football that he was coming up against at that level a little bit difficult in terms of the physicality. Because as you know that the type of football at that level's got a still little bit of old school in it, hasn't it, in terms of the physical aspect. In terms of was he going to and end up didn't play a lot of games for me, so it's quite a difficult one in terms of is he then going to be ready for Newcastle United when he's gone on loan to us at Blythe, who had a tough season, and he wasn't really making his mark there. Mark Gillespie, one of the reasons I decided that my time was up at Blackpool when I quit, there was two players. There was a lad called Brad Potts, who I think could be at Barnsley now, but we're both at Carlisle United. And I used to see them regular because, where I live here in the city in Newcastle, just off the A69, it's a 45-minute drive to Carlisle. So whenever they used to play at home, I used to go and watch them most times if I wasn't involved in the game myself. So I got to see Mark and Brad quite a bit. So when I was involved at Blackpool, I wanted to sign them. I tried to do a double deal with Carlisle, but my crazy owners at the time at Blackpool, the Oystons, just wouldn't stump up the money, which was a nominal fee for two young talented players. And Brad actually was in the academy at Newcastle also, two ex-lads. And the talented keepers, and I've kept an eye on, obviously, Mark Dunn, especially when he went up to Scotland. And he is a talent. I tell you, the big disappointment for me is the Freddie Woodman one, because obviously I had Freddie up at Kilmarnock. And you have a supremely talented goalkeeper there, an unbelievable talent of a keeper. But he's that good, and rightly so. He hasn't got the desire to be a number two anywhere. He wants to be a number one. And he's had that gradual progression in terms of being a number one. Obviously up in Scotland in the SPFL with me, and then going on to Swansea. And actually seen him earlier in the season down at Craven Cottage. I went to the game, Fulham v Swansea, and he was outstanding. Great character, great mentality, self-belief, unbelievable work ethic on the training ground. Lovely kid. But it's going to be hard, isn't it? Because Dubravka has been an impressive signing for Newcastle, even though he'd be disappointed with the goal he conceded against Villa. So Freddie, probably in his own mind, doesn't want to come and be the number two to him, even though if he did do it for a couple of years, maybe he would get the chance to then become the number one. He wants things quickly, Freddie. So, that's the big frustration for me, because there's a superbly talented goalkeeper there.
Another big question. John Poole, Lee, have you tried Thatcher's Rosé cider? If you haven't, I recommend it. They sell it in bottles and cans.
Oh, right, John. I'm not really a cider fan, but I'll give it. I'll have a try, and I'll give me a count of it. I'll get Steve to remind us with a text, tell us what it is, and I'll get a can through the week, and then I'll tell you what it was like next Saturday.
Brilliant. Andy Gibson says, would you go for Fabian Schär in midfield if you had to?
I certainly would if we're down in numbers, because what he does show, Shaw, certainly at the back, he has a good touch. He's got a good passing range. He can see a pass. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult in the middle of the pitch because you get closed down a bit more quickly than you do as a central defender. Yeah. But he certainly has the quality on the ball. He will have the defensive mindset in terms of being a defender in any way. And if Steve does have to have a couple of, like we said, square pegs and round holes, he would certainly come into your thinking to push into there, definitely.
Jack Hazard says, do you think we need to get a new striker or stick with Linton?
Whether we get taken over or not, we need more quality at the top end of the pitch, without a shadow of a doubt. And so, you know, there has to be a better quality of striker brought in, without a doubt.
Richard Morris says, what do you make of Bentaleb?
Do you know what? This one's it's a strange one for me, because he's obviously had a spell in the country before with Spurs and never really made a big impression on us. But I know he's got a big reputation. Obviously went to Germany, and but then they let him come to us. I think there's a technically talented player there. Whether he has the physical capabilities to be a midfield player in the Premier League, I'm not too sure. I don't know if sometimes I just feel the game drifts by him a little bit. But I do believe that he has the technical ability in terms of his touch and his passing range. But obviously, he's not even a possibility either tomorrow, isn't he? Because did you see he was suspended, Steve?
Suspended, mate. He's suspended. I mean, look, he is an interesting player. Is he worth bringing in full time? I would say no. But it's certainly another good loan signing. I think that Newcastle made. A bit like Danny Rose. I'm still not 100% convinced that I would stick with Danny Rose moving forward. Although the first 2 games back after lockdown, he has looked fit, despite numerous people trying to fat shame him on social media. He's looked fit, and he's actually put in probably one of his best performances. I thought he played really well against Villa. He was steady, does everything simple. He looked every inch the player that he's supposed to be. I know it's only against Villa, who are at the bottom, and struggling to stay up, but I still thought it was a good performance. But I'm not sure. I think 5 million. I think that they put on his head, which not a massive amount in this day and age.
No, that's a key, and they would be the types of deals that Newcastle would be having to look to do if the takeover doesn't happen, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So of course he would be, but if it does happen, you've got the possibilities of going for higher value players, probably players who can give you a bit more. You look at the left backs who Man City and Chelsea have been taught about, the likes of Chilwell of this world and people like that, who are going to be costing you in excess of 70, 75, 80 million quid. So, that's what you're competing against.
Yeah, 100%. Peter Robson, can we discuss Elliott being released? He's been a good servant of the club over the years. He finds a good club. Look, I think you're right. I think the one beauty about Robbie Elliott was that he came in and he got the area, a bit like St. Maximin's done. He's bought into the area. He loves the area. I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed up here. When he was called upon, he always did his best, Lee.
Absolutely. I've met the guy a couple of times. I've never worked with him on a professional basis, but I've met him in the company of some of my ex-teammates and people involved at the club. And what a great guy, what a lovely man. And like you said, he comes across to me. He's a very good professional. He gets on with his work. He has took to the area. He talks positively about the people, about the city. Really, him and his family, seem to have loved being up here. I think he's even got involved in some academy coaching system with Paul Dummett, and I think with some local lads up here. So he's putting a bit back into the local football as well with that. So listen, few and far between these guys like this who you can rely on. And he looked like a player who he didn't spit his dummy out if he got left out. If he ever was recalled, he just got on with his job and he'd done it to the best of his ability. And he seemed to relish and really be appreciative that he was at Newcastle United. And he was loving it. And always sad when these things come to an end. But I read some of his quotes, and it just married up with what I thought about him. His quotes on what he was talking about and how he was perceived and how he took to the club and he thanked the fans. It was an impressive statement, just like him. So from me, all I can say is, if he wants to continue his playing career, I hope he gets the move him and his family want, and wish him the best.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. Good luck to Rob Elliott, lovely lad. And someone's just put the gates that have got an announcement at 6 o'clock tonight. Some people thinking Rob Elliott might be popping over there with his connections with Mike Williamson. So we'll wait and see what Gateshead say tonight. Steinson21 says, what was it like working under Glenn Roeder at the start of your coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, Glenn, give us that opportunity. Me and Glenn had gone back a long time when I was a schoolboy in the club or trying to sign us when I was being invited to other clubs. When school holidays, I used to sometimes train with the first team, and Glenn was the captain then. So I was only 13, 14, and I was training with the first team under Willie McFall. And Glenn was the captain. So I got to know him then. He was part of Glenn Hoddle's staff when I got my England call-ups. So, when we kept in touch. Glenn had obviously had his illness while he was manager of West Ham, his brain tumour, and he'd always said that he never wanted to go back into the stressful life of first team management. So when Freddie Shepherd brought him back to be head of the academy, it was a great move. Ex-club captain, he'd worked at a good level and he'd done some good work at the academy. But obviously when Graham Souness got moved on, they called up to Glenn and he got the taste, didn't he? We're back into Europe. Got into a European position, and then he got the taste buds back for it. So yeah, listen, and then he took me. I ended up going down to Norwich as his assistant. So yeah, good. He loves New. There's another man. He came from London, East End lad, Cockney, and ended up loving the area, loving the club. Real affinity with it. So. That just shows, it gets people in so many different ways.
Lee, I know you've seen me play once, I think. Stephen Lauder's asking, do you think I can play midfield as a stopgap? Because I don't look much like the right back. Where give it a go. Hey, what's it like? It'll only be David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne you're up against. Tell you what, I'd catch them at least once, Lee, because all I used to do when I in the morning was kick.
I'm not sure that the red card wouldn't stay in the pocket too long, that's for sure.
Stephen Robinson says, as a monkey hanger, and for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what that is, that's somebody from Hartlepool after they hung the monkey that landed on the beach. I was just wondering if Lee donned the famous blue and white stripes of Hartlepool, if he'd ever got the call like former teammates Beardsley and Solano. Yeah, have you ever had a call from Hartlepool wanting your services?
No, I never had that possibility. I do have a strong affinity with the club because I used to go and watch them regular many years ago because my brother-in-law, Paul Baker, played for them, formed a good partnership with Joe Allen for a long time. Under Cyril Knowles, had some success. So I used to go down quite regular and watch them play. And just like in my coaching career and managerial career, with it just being on the doorstep, trying to watch games at all levels, I've always been welcomed down there by the people in charge to go and watch games there. Passionate fans, tidy little ground. Just need to try and get them back, obviously, into the Football League again, and hopefully that won't be too far away.
It's going to be difficult for those teams. I was speaking to Malcolm James, who's the chairman of Dunstan, and obviously he was just saying that he's heard, that most of the non-league will all come back together, and hoping it's going to be around about September. But there's no guarantees at the minute, and that's the big worry. Even teams like Hartlepool are going to be concerned about how long this goes on for, And after we've seen some of the irresponsible behaviour thousands of people up and down the country going to beaches and stuff like that, we could potentially have a second wave of this, which could decimate everything by the end of the year. And that's a big concern. Lee Foster says, what do you think of Newcastle's efforts to cover the seats in the ground? He thinks it's landed best. I've seen most of the games, like you, Lee. It's been great just to have the games on and watch the football. And I've seen some games have got cardboard cutouts of fans. Some of that's gone wrong, of course. I think somebody put Bin Laden in one of the grounds. What's your make? It's literally just flags, isn't it? And adverts with some of Mike's businesses on. Surprise, surprise.
Aye, well, I think that was always going to happen, wasn't it? I mean, I've got to say, I haven't took a lot of notice of the flags. I did notice there was a couple that, in the championship game, Leeds went to Cardiff, and I seen a couple which I thought was a good touch from Cardiff. About Trevor Cherry and Norman Hunter, because two Leeds legends who passed away during the COVID-19 and because of the illness. So that was really the only ones I've really took any notice about. The other ones with various different messages from, as you say, sponsors, stakeholders in the club. I haven't really took a lot of notice. All I noticed that there was still a few Sports Direct ones knocking about, so which we come to expect, don't we?
Well, of course, mate. Of course. We just had a message there. Where's it gone? Yes. J127 Max says, where's your mate Stavely, Steve? Seems a load of knackers yet again. She's quite reactive. Look, where's the takeover? What's going on? Deliberately, me and Lee, before we came on air, said we weren't really going to talk about it. It's pointless. We haven't moved on. In a nutshell, Stavely's bid is genuine because, she's working with the Saudis and she's working with the Rubens. Where are we at? Nobody really knows. I think anybody with half a brain would look at it though now and say that what's going on, certainly with the piracy issue since the WTO report came out, that Saudi seem to be making massive inroads into blocking 231 websites that violate the intellectual property regimes. That's what I would say is happening. So I think that Khashoggi's, girlfriend who's come out with the letters, I think the fact that she's continued to contact the Premier League has its part to play, and I feel that Mr. Masters, the chief executive at the Premier League, will have wanted to make sure that he has paid attention to everything and that there's nothing unturned before the decision's made. So, where's Stavely? Well, at the moment, she's going to court backwards and forwards. The bid is on the table. The bid was accepted by Ashley. We're waiting for the Premier League. So maybe your interest to be directed more towards the Premier League than the person who's trying to buy our club.
I think you're right, Steve. I think people who are getting caught up in what's happening with Mike Ashley, what's happening with Stavely, it's beyond them now. The deal's been agreed. The deposit's been paid. It's in the Premier League's lawyers' hands now. Amanda Stavely, Reuben Brothers, the Saudis can't do anything about it. The delay is there now. Amanda Stavely kind of go and sit outside Premier League headquarters and just see what's happening. It's the process. So there's only, like you rightly said, the only people who need to be talked about, if we're going to talk about it, but it's pointless because they're going to take the time that they want over it, is the Premier League.
Yeah, nothing we say, nothing anybody says is going to change it. We've just got to crack on and just see how things progress. Colin Wilson says, Lee, have you ever had an invite from Sky to join Jeff Stelling on a Saturday afternoon? Your crack would fit right in.
No, but if you want to put us forward, Colin, tell him I'm available.
Tell him he's available after 3 because me and Lee will be doing the 2. Andy Barr, Leeds have got Jimmy Savile in their cardboard. I knew this would happen, because you can put your photograph in, and it's just honestly anyone you think who was looking at these should be looking at them and making sure that it isn't people like that. It's always going to be used. Man City, then let's have a look ahead to that. I've already mentioned the potential injuries. Lee Mason is going to be refereeing the game as well, but I'm just trying to think what else we need to know from the game. We're missing those midfielders. The Longstaffs are both potentially available. We're hoping that they're available. We're not sure what's happening with Matty, whether he's been left out of the squad because of the ongoing contract situation. Kieran Clark, of course, still not fit, and neither is Lejeune. So yeah, I mean, how do you see that game panning out? What team would you start? A lot of people asking what team you would start.
Well, I think, it's a completely different mindset when you come up against these teams, and you've got to be pragmatic. You do have to set yourself up, and the group need to know, and I think they do, that they're going to have to do a lot of hard work off the ball to stay in a good shape, to stop Manchester City getting into the areas where they want to be. Keeping them playing in front of you, basically, because if they start playing between the lines and in behind you, that's when they hurt, because they move at such speed with and without the ball. They work so hard that they try and drag you from side to side by just moving the ball quickly. Very rarely see them take more than 2 touches. So I think it'll be similar to obviously Dubravka, Carroll up top, St. Maxim, one at wing. I don't know, with Richie, does he go Almiron? But then it's all ifs and buts in the middle of the pitch, isn't it? It's if the 2 Longstaffs are fit, it's 3. First and foremost, if you can get 3 fit, experienced centre mids out there, you put them out there. So it's ifs and buts for me in the middle. And then obviously you've got Rose, Manquillo, Lascelles, Fernandez. So, it all depends on the injury situation in terms of the midfield, Steve. If you've got the 2 Longstaffs and possibly that's it. You might put Shaw in there, just give them the defensive side, possibly alongside Sean, and let Matty have a little bit of a more attacking midfield role to go up and support Andy and play off Andy when we're getting good possession. I think that's the key. It all depends on what these potential doubts of these central midfield players are. You've got to have fingers crossed you can get at least 2 experienced central midfield players out who are past fit, because if you're only going in there with 1 and you've got a couple of square pegs, as I said, the last team you want to be doing that against in the middle of the pitch is Manchester City. So you'll be getting that medical team, and hopefully that maybe the couple of the knocks that they've got are the types of injuries that cannot get any worse. So maybe it's an impact injury. If it's a muscle injury, you very rarely take risks, because you're only going to make those worse. But if it's a kick or a little bit of a dead leg or something like that, you can get away with it. But so, let's fingers are crossed and be waiting until, what is it, before the FA Cup? I think it's an hour and a quarter, isn't it, before kick-off for the team sheet. So be waiting at bated breath for that an hour and a quarter before kick-off to see who's made it and who hasn't.
What do you reckon about Paul Shanks' suggestion there on the screen? ESM and Miggy up front together against the Man City poor defence?
You know what, it works. It was a spell where when I was manager at Birmingham, we lost all our strikers through injury. And we had about a 5-game spell where I had to play Nathan Redmond, who's a very quick winger, and Ravel Morrison, who is a real quick central, for a central midfield player, quick, and they move quickly with the ball. They were great, the little 1-2s. They were brilliant. I played the 2 of them up front, and they were unplayable because of their little bits of movement, the 1 and 2 touches. But what happened was they weren't natural goal scorers, so they were making loads of chances for themselves. But they were inadvertently, they weren't scoring enough of them. So, for example, we went Ellen Road one Saturday and we beat Leeds 1-0. But in all honesty, we should have won 5 or 6. They just ripped Leeds apart, the 2 of them. They couldn't handle that quick interplay, the speed of them, the running in behind. We knew as a team we didn't have any aerial presence up top, so we had to play through the lines even more. So they were just coming off into little pockets, but they were getting clean through, and then they were put it wide, or the keeper would save it, And so that's the only thing. I think, obviously, the 2 they've mentioned there, Almiron and St. Maxim, you know, they won't have the 100% instincts of number 9s, but they'll cause some damage because of the pace of them. If you can get that quality ball over the top, the both of them will catch it. Or, you know, what you certainly have with St. Maxim, he could come off short, get on the half turn and get dribbling at people. Same with Almiron, because he's direct as well. So that's always another option for Steve to have in his armoury with those types of players.
Go to 3 at the back with wing backs, John Ball suggests.
I know we're talking about, like, we're not going to have a lot of the ball in anyway, but I just feel that the system that is in place at the moment, the players have played a little bit more on the front foot. You know, what you cannot do against these is, yes, you're going to, you know, let them have the ball in front of you, but you cannot let them just have it for the whole 90 odd minutes, because they'll eventually break you down. You've got to put them under pressure. It's no good us saying, oh, that Achilles heels our defence if we don't get the ball up that end of the pitch and we start playing against them. So it's about you know, pushing on. And I sometimes with the 3-5-2, yes, it gives you a bit more solidity in the middle of the pitch, but you don't really get up the pitch quickly enough, and you sometimes get left exposed in the wide areas. And certainly with the pace that they have, Man City, in those wide areas, you don't want to be doing that.
Darren Tannock will do the last question. He says, who do you think gave the okay to the new contracts, the buying side or the selling side? It's still the selling side, isn't it? Luke Charnley and Mike Ashley are still running the club.
Well, yeah, of course. I wouldn't have thought the potential new owners can have any say in anything, because this deal mightn't go through. So, you know, I think Mike and Lee Charnley have made these decisions.
Peter, well, go on, Peter. We'll let you sneak that one in. Would you manage Sunderland right now? I would imagine the answer is yes. I mean, at the end of the day, to be a good opportunity for you, Lee.
Listen, it's a strange one. You're a football manager. I mean, what worries me about them after watching their in-house documentary was that the club seems to have been, you know, it seems to have been run very poorly over the last few years. And I think it's a club the size and stature of Sunderland, the longer it stays in League One, will find it very, very difficult financially, because they'll be losing so much money at that level of football. I've obviously worked in there with Huddersfield and Bury, and you know, the finances you make from those games, it'll be nothing for what Sunderland need for their overheads, even to run their football club, to run their academy, to run their training ground, which is a terrific facility in that big stadium. So I just think that the longer that club stays in there, and especially, you know, with the problems that clubs have had with, you know, the pandemic we're hopefully coming out of, that it could be a long time. I mean, it was a hammer blow that they didn't get in the playoffs, but their own fault. They let too many silly results go against them. You know, that's a league, and the players that had been brought in, those players should have been more than good enough to get that league out. They underachieved. They seem to be good players, but characters who couldn't handle the expectation of being the huge fish in a small pond.
Yeah, Claire Brown says, another great show. Hopefully we'll be full of smiles tomorrow evening with Supermac. Don't forget, tomorrow I've got Nikos Dabizas on before the game. Then we've got myself, the Geordie Dentist, Steve Hasty and Supermac on just for a quick half-hour chat after the game. Monday, we've got Rob MacDonald on, which will be interesting. Rob's now coaching, of course, across in Holland. But obviously, those of you of a certain age will remember Rob. Probably not fondly, it has to be said, but he's agreed to come on. David Harrison says, great show, lads. Thanks. 2-0 to the tune tomorrow. Right, my prediction, Lee, was 1-1, and I think Newcastle will win on penalties. So what's your prediction for the FA Cup?
I would snap your hands off, Steve, straight away. I'd take that all day long. Not that I'd have any fingernails left, like, after if it went to penalties, but hey, I'd take any kind of win, 100%. It would be brilliant. Not only getting to the semi-final of the FA Cup, but beating one of the potential teams who could win it on the way there. So, yeah, let's. Every Newcastle United player has the best ever game, the best game of the season. That's what it'll need to be tomorrow. They have a little bit of an off day, and we'll get that little bit of luck as well.
Lee, as always, absolute pleasure, mate. Look forward to speaking to you next Saturday, and have a good week, pal.
And hopefully the sun's out so I can get back on the roads here.
When we need a review.
Oh, yes. No, I'll have that through the weekend and I'll give you my verdict whether it's that or that.
Come on. Take care, mate.
Ta-ra.